in mind that it is the unemployment scenario that is pushing markets low today. Yolanda, thank you so much for your time today. Non-farm payroll showing that 131,000 jobs slashed for the month of June. Disappointing number. And of course, unemployment steady though from June to July at 9.5%. Of course, the census jobs had a big part to play in these figures.
I'm sorry, Eleni, could you repeat your question?
Let's start off with the non-farm payrolls, Yolanda. 131,000 jobs slashed from the numbers for the month of July.
Yes, Eleni, very disappointing numbers. We did see an indication that those numbers would come out worse than expected from the jobless numbers yesterday, and as well as we've seen a decrease in the manufacturing numbers over the last two reporting seasons for manufacturing. So a lot of investors expected. Really waited for those numbers to come out, but with the expectation that those numbers were going to come out in negative territory this afternoon.
Well, it's interesting to note, I mean, obviously those numbers came in worse than expected. We're seeing the dollar losing ground against the basket of major currencies. It is coming under pressure against the rand as well, and this is why we're seeing the rand on the front foot. But what's also interesting to note is that the rand is losing ground against the pound and the euro. How do you see that sentiment playing out next week?
Eleni, I think in terms of the rand, we're possibly, we are seeing investors moving into the yuan versus the rand, and I think a lot of some of the local data out in the South Africa this week in particular, we saw the banks perhaps also being a little bit cautious, and obviously with the previous data out from Aquarius in terms of the mining, and then obviously Lonmin overnight, I think investors are starting to become cautious about South Africa. So the rand possibly taking a back foot on that, and I think we're possibly going to see that in the next week.
Let's touch on Lonmin at the bottom of the top 40 today, down 4.3%. And the South African government today yesterday ordered Lonmin to stop selling nickel, copper, chrome and other associated minerals with immediate effect. Of course, this is creating a lot of concern, but I suppose it really points to the bigger picture here in South Africa that being in the resource space is becoming increasingly tough.
Yes, and very, very inconsistent. Our comments previously with the Aquarius surprise was that the Department of Mineral Resources really needs to build a relationship with international companies, and they seem to not be doing that. And I think the change in the Act is making it a lot easier for them to make changes without warning. The previous Act was very clear. And it's obviously very concerning for companies, and one really doesn't know from one day to the next what the Department of Mining and Resources is going to do. So very, very, very negative for international investors.
Looking at SAB Miller, we know that in yesterday's session it was at the bottom of the top 40, down 2.5%. Today it shed another 2%. What is driving this stock lower, Yolanda?
Eleni, I think it's a combination of two things. Their last statement in terms of performance for the first half of the year, where we expected to see them in terms of sales come through from the World Cup. They said they were going to be flat, and then we saw Brand House coming out with a statement yesterday that their market share is increasing in terms of their premium brands, and that's really where the money is being made, which technically implies that SA Brewery is losing market share at the top end. SA Brewery has come out with a statement today to say they're going to be increasing their output in the southern Sudanese area. But really, SA Brewery is coming under a lot of pressure with Brand House really attacking them on the lower brand. We saw them losing their case, and then obviously now they're attacking them in terms of the premium brand. We saw SA Breweries coming breaking through its long-term uptrend support line at the close. It closed at 215.51. Apologize. So very cautious, and they're going to come under pressure in the next 6 months. They need to do a lot to repair their brand and to really compensate for Brand House.
Yolanda, we didn't get a chance to talk about Avenge, of course, a company that did come out with results today. Just very quickly, what's on tap for next week? Of course, earnings under the spotlight and various economic data in South Africa. Very quickly.
Very quickly, it's a value stock. They're doing things right. Their Australian numbers are very good, and they obviously have come out today to say that a crash Platinum has pulled back on their damages claim, and we see them running high. And they're going to be a very good stock in the next 6 months, and they're really doing well. It's a value stock there.